Hello. It's been a hot couple of days, so therefore I have been a delight to be around. We do have a cool change happening out there at the moment, but it is a stormy cool change. So I'm in the yellow void because I did start to record outside, but then I was almost literally blown inside by the wind. It's now just a gentle, steady rain, which is lovely. I do have my fan on, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. It's just stuffy in the house still, and I didn't want to turn red and fall over on camera. I prefer to do that in private. That's my business for me. So, Work in Progress Wednesday. I have made a dress, and I'm wearing it now, and I can't show you it very well because I'm in the yellow void. However, I do have footage of me standing around in a garden. I do really never know what to do with my hands, my body, or my feet, let alone my face. So just enjoy this particularly awkward modelling of this dress, and then we'll talk about it. So now let me tell you about the dress. It is the June dress by HubbaDing. It is an oversized dress. It is supposed to be loose fitting and flowy. This is not quite as flowy as it should be because this fabric's a little bit firmer than I was expecting it to be. I ordered it online, so I couldn't sort of fondle it first. It is a bit stiff. I have pre-washed it, obviously, before I sewed anything, because you have to, and it did soften up a little bit, but it's still a little bit crisp for this dress, I think. But it is going to work. It will soften with wash and wear. I chose this fabric because I wanted something to wear to the Christmas markets that I'm doing in December that was festive, but also not something that I could only really wear in December. So I can wear this all year round. Nobody's going to think it's Christmassy in July. Brilliant. So this is a size 20. I'm actually a size 22 in the HubbaDing sizing, which is New Zealand sizing. But because it's an oversized pattern, there is a little bit of room to go down. And I read a review that said that the V is very deep if you make it true to size once you get into the larger sizes. And I didn't want, so my V ends about there. I didn't want it any lower than that because my underwear is under there, okay? I don't want people to know that I wear underwear. So I made a toile before I cut out my pattern to make sure that the 20 would fit me. A toile or a muslin is basically the pattern made out of cheap fabric. This is old bedding. I didn't need to make the skirt or anything because I knew the waist measurement was going to be okay. I knew everything else was going to be okay. I just wanted to check the bodice. I wanted to see where the V sat, which you can't really see because this has collapsed. So I wanted to check where the V sat. Where's the V? There it is. No, there it is. There's the V. And I wanted to make sure that the sleeve fit, and I wanted to make sure that it was okay across the back. All of that checked out. This little scrap of bodice fit. So I went ahead and cut into my main fabric. I did have some problems. All of them self-inflicted, I think. It was a hot day and I was a bit grumpy, which is not like me. So one of the problems I had was the first sleeve I put in, I set into the wrong sleeve hole. Now sleeves, if you're looking at a pattern, do tend to look similar. But if you look at a garment that you have, you'll notice that the sleeves tend to hang a little bit forward because that's how the arm hangs. So the first one I put in, my arm would have been hanging back like that. And I don't know how that happened. I've looked at the pattern really closely. I think either the notches are wrong on the pattern, but I don't think that's true, or I put the notches on the wrong side, which is much more likely. So I had to unpick the sleeves. I had to unpick the gathering at one point because I realised that I'd put all of the gathering on one hip. So that would have been quite a good look. I did try and put pockets in. Because I like to have pockets. There's no pockets in the pattern. But I made a very rookie mistake and didn't allow seam allowance on my pockets, and I couldn't get my hands into them because they were about that big. So I couldn't get them in. But at the same time, they were also quite open, which is quite strange in the side seams. I've never had that happen before. So I thought about that for a long time, and being the perfectionist that I am, what I decided to do was sew that opening closed and then just cut the pockets off. I thought about unpicking it all and doing it again, and genuinely couldn't be bothered. Not a perfectionist. If you are a perfectionist, that's fine. I'm so happy for you. I hope it's working out. It's not me. I just like things done. So it's not a perfect piece of sewing. The inside of this is a disaster, but it fits. It's nice and cool and airy. It should be great for the markets. And I can wear it in July and nobody's going to wish me a Merry Christmas. So there's no Santas, there's no reindeer, there's no snowflakes. Australia does still put snowflakes on all our Christmas stuff. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, weavings. This has been on the loom for a long time, and now it is off the loom and it is wet finished because I may have mentioned we've had some warm weather, so I knew it would dry before it was time to record. It's fine. I didn't really... Oh, it looks quite good on camera, actually. I didn't really have a nice time with this. I think it's just the yarn. Sometimes things don't feel good on the loom, and it's personal preference entirely. Somebody else might put this on the loom and say, this feels fantastic on the loom. And that's great. It's personal preference. It came out okay. Quite long colour blocks in the length of it. But that is off the loom, and I'm happy about it. This is Horizon by Hobie Yarns, and I will say if you buy Horizon by Hobie Yarns and think it feels a bit stiff, it does soften up really. It softens up a lot after washing. Now the ribbon, which I should have shown you first because this was not wet finished last week, but it was done, has been wet finished. There has been some shrinkage. So what I have is basically it looks the same, but it feels quite different. It feels quite squishy. Technical term, stop me if I do get too technical. So that's the ribbon side, and then on the other side I've got here the weft floats to make those ribbon floats happen. Have I explained that well? No. I've got the weft floats on this side, so I skipped those threads when I was weaving so that the ribbon would show on that side. Is that any clearer? I don't know. I am still quite warm. So anyway, that is off the loom. It is wet finished. It is good to go. Now, I had just started a alpaca and wool and soybean scarf project. Don't know where that came from. And it has done the opposite to what I expected it to do. So last week I was talking about how I wasn't sure how I was going to blend these sections of wool because I wasn't able to cut a continuous length because there were manufacturers, not knots, but chaoses, fuzzes. So what I decided to do was to put in blocks of the alpaca. So I don't know if you can see, but there's some of the wool and soybean mix. Try and get that in the light. And then there's these rows of 7 rows of alpaca between the blocks, just at random intervals. I didn't do any counting on that apart from the 7. I counted to 7, but the actual wool bits I didn't count. I measured that with my heart. Now what I expected to happen was that the alpaca would shrink more than the wool and therefore pull those little sections in and give me sort of a wavy edge. The opposite actually happened. The wool shrunk more than the alpaca, which you can sort of see. It's not a huge difference, but you might be able to see. There's actually a really good example at, I think, this end. Here we go. So you can see here that the alpaca is still quite wide and then the wool is a little narrower in the middle. So I'm not mad about it. It's just not what I expected to happen. But that is done. It is lovely and soft and quite warm, which is what you need coming into summer. I will stop complaining about the weather, probably about March. So yeah, you can see it quite well there, that it's wider, that alpaca stripe there is wider than the wool on the other side. So it's an interesting effect. It's not what I was expecting, but because I don't sample, life is full of surprises. I do have something on the loom. It is very fresh on the loom, as is tradition on Work in Progress Wednesday. So I'll show you that, and then that's probably your lot. Very fresh on the loom, as you can probably tell, because it hasn't been hem stitched and I've still got my cardboard strips in place. I usually put one of these in so that I've got a nice flat edge to start weaving against. This time I've got 2 because I realised I hadn't given myself a lot of fringe length, potential fringe length. I don't know how long I'm going to have the fringe on this, but I wanted to have some options at the end. And I have noticed the threading mistake, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that, because it's very close to the start of the piece. I can unweave this, undo all this, untie it, and then rethread it up here at the heddle. But it took me so long to get the tension workable on this that I'm kind of unwilling to do that because I don't want to play the tensioning game again. The tension in the neutral position is all over the place. Some of these threads are very loose, some of them are very tight. Well, not very tight, but tighter. The tension in the sheds, the up shed and the down shed, is absolutely fine, but that did take a little while to get to. So I don't really want to undo it. So I might just be running with the mistake. We'll just live with it. It's fine. So that mistake comes from these packed slots. They're not packed. They're not like, I don't have like 6 or 7 threads in them. I just have 3. So this was double threaded, and then I moved 1 thread over to the hole, and then all of these have been double threaded. So these slots have 3 threads in them, I think. Is that 3? Yeah, they've got 3 threads in them. I thought that made sense. That looked like 4, but it was catching the hole next to it. So these thicker stripes are just 3 threads, and then the thinner ones are just 1 thread. And that's just to give it a bit of texture and interest, because I don't normally work in one single colour, and when I do, I tend to complicate things for myself a little bit. So this yarn is this, and it's on clearance at the moment at the Thread Collective. It's recycled cotton by Ada Fibres. It's lovely and soft. It's got a little bit of a tweedy effect in it. It is predominantly this beautiful shade of green. I also bought a shade of mint and a yellow. I'll put a link in the description below because they are on clearance. This was $20 for this cone, and that because they're discontinued. So if you're in Australia, I don't know that the Thread Collective posts internationally, but if you're in Australia, I would recommend grabbing if you would like quite a lot of recycled cotton for not a lot of money. So they're half price at the minute, basically. But that is what is on the loom. It is a nice, summery, lightweight sort of a project for this kind of weather, and I may or may not have it finished by next week. As always, we will find out together. Only expecting to have the little loom in play for a while. I do have a little bit more sewing to do for market because I have a foldable camp table that I put the Moors bags on, and it just looks tragic in a market because everybody else has got lovely tablecloths and drapery and decorations, and I've got a little Kmart camping table that looks a bit cheap. So I'm going to sew a tablecloth that will completely cover it, and no one will ever know how cheap the table underneath is, and they'll look at my tablecloth and think, I bet there's a nice table under there, and they will be wrong, but I will fool them all with my tablecloth. I think I need a cup of tea. I think it's been a long day. You have a lovely rest of your week. I will see you next time. Bye for now.